Going on to the next topic. This man, the NFL playoffs are shaping up to be very, very, very exciting at this point because this Carolina Panthers and Arizona Cardinals game is technically the first time that two Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks will be going head to head with one another, in Carson Palmer and Cam Newton. And there's so many storylines that have come in even with this game because you have Cam Newton, the revolutionary quarterback who everybody's talking about is the quarterback of this generation. With the dabbing, with the pipe it up dances and everything like that, and the celebratory stuff he does, and you just see how he's revolutionized or affecting Carolina and stuff like that. Then you go over to Arizona where you have Carson Palmer, whose first playoff win came last week against Green Bay. So you look at those two different aspects, and then there's so many things with that team too. Of so many people thinking Larry Fitzgerald is like the nicest personality, like at the wide receiver position, that Super Bowl ring has eluded him for so long, and yet then you have this other team on the other side who's this upcoming, and you feel like this season has been destiny for the Panthers. Like nobody, I don't think there was anybody apart from maybe Panther fans that saw a season like this coming from the Panthers. They probably didn't even see it. 15-1, winning home field advantage throughout the playoffs until the Super Bowl. Nobody probably even saw this season coming from the Panthers. So then you look at, especially without Kelvin Benjamin. So you look at those two different storylines, and then it all meets this Sunday. So what do y'all think about this game? How do you think this game is going to go? Kyla, we'll start off with you. What do you think?
This is going to be a very, very hype game. Just looking at the way that the Panthers and the Cardinals played last week, I think it's going to be a lot of like trade off and scoring. One thing I saw a little bit was the fact that both defenses kind of like crumbled a little bit. Like in the second half of the Seahawks and Panthers game, Seahawks, like Russell Wilson started abusing that secondary of the Panthers, and they started coming back with the scoring, even though the Panthers still won the game. And then in the Green Bay and Arizona game, Arizona barely hung on to a win in overtime against Green Bay, and Green Bay just decimated their defense. Aaron Rodgers, it is Aaron Rodgers, who is a very great quarterback, and he just like exposed their defense. So one thing that I do think is gonna like decide the game is how well the opposing team's offense will handle the other team's defense. Like how well they can what's the word I'm looking for? Take advantage of the weak points in the defense. Mm-hmm. Because the Cardinals, they really don't have too much of a rushing game. They got Carson Palmer and Larry Fitzgerald as the keystones of their offense, and that's a whole lot. They lead in the league. Well, they're not leading the league, but they're better at passing than the Panthers. Versus the Panthers, who has an all-around game in the offense. So I do think that the Panthers have an advantage in this game, and I do want the Cardinals to win though, because we all want to see Larry Fitzgerald and Carson Palmer get the Super Bowl ring, or at least win the NFC championship. Mm-hmm. But it looks like it's swinging in the Panthers' favor.
Okay, Rashad, how about you?
All right, so let me go and assess both of these games real quick. The Seahawks-Panthers game. A lot of people think when you're watching that game, you're like, oh, that offense is legit. That offense put up mad points. But technically, no. You had that one break run with Jonathan Stewart based on the first play of the game. So, what was the first play of the game? Mm-hmm. Had, 60-yard run, which set up a 4-yard touchdown run by Jonathan Stewart. Then you had a pick six by Luke Kuechly. That's 14 points right there. They had 31 for the game. And all of it came basically the first half. Mm-hmm. So, now nothing's wrong with the defense. That defense got conservative in the second half, which caused Russell Wilson to start cooking them. Eating them up. Mm-hmm. So, their defense was good. Their offense didn't impress me as much. Now, with the Arizona Cardinals game, it's not the same way because basically that game shouldn't even went to overtime. It took Aaron Rodgers like crazy plays, Hail Marys, and everything to get them to take it to overtime. And then basically when Cardinals got the ball, Larry Fitzgerald torched them. So I don't think Carolina has the offensive power to keep up with Arizona. If they trade points, I don't think they can keep up. It's going to take an amazing defensive game out of Carolina to beat the Arizona Cardinals, because the Arizona Cardinals defense is no slouch as well. Their defense can play. Their defense can get up as well, just like the Panthers defense can get up. So when you compare like that, you have two strong defenses, and you have a decent offense and a strong offense. You have a lot more weapons with Arizona. It's just that you have Cam Newton back there for Carolina, who can scramble, make plays with his feet as well. Jonathan Stewart, who's having probably one of his best seasons he's had. So I feel like the Cardinals have the edge in this game because of how powerful the offense is and how their defense can actually stay with a team. We see that defensive line can get to quarterbacks, can rush Cam Newton, can make him hustle, make him get out the pocket, make him, think a lot more than he has to. It's going to be harder to find Greg Olsen, but making plays with his feet is going to help him. It's going to depend if his receivers can get open, because Cam Newton's going to get flushed out that pocket a lot more probably this game than
they're going to force him to run.
So, but I see the Cardinals winning this game. And depending on how the game goes, if it's an offensive game, I see them winning by 2 touchdowns. If it's a defensive game, I see 1.
But okay, so to your point about the Panthers offense, I mean, you can't discredit a big run just because that's part of the offensive game.
There was a hole in the defense, and it was a hole in the defense. You had a break run, big play that led to a touchdown.
Yeah.
But if you look at it when your defense is actually on point, there's no not many mistakes. You saw that the offense couldn't do anything in the second half.
But I'm saying, so then what can we say for the Cardinals play when in overtime when Larry Fitzgerald breaks that big run off that pass to the other side of the field?
In the defense.
That's a hole in the defense. That's still a play that counts towards your offense.
Yeah.
So how can you discredit one team's play but then credit the other team's play? They didn't have a defensive
touchdown that game either.
So that's still 24 points that the Panthers put up in the first half. I mean, besides the Luke Kuechly pick six, that's still what's it called? A defensive cut. Yeah, that's still 24 points that they scored.
You're right.
You know what I mean?
But it's still.
And then with that lead, they started playing like front runners. They started playing very conservative on offense. They just were playing to run out the clock as opposed to how aggressive they were playing in the first half. So
they switched up the game.
They switched up their game plan just because of the fact they were actually leading. So,
but I mean, it wasn't a straight run every play though. It was more conservative, but I mean, they still couldn't even get the run game going in the second half.
It was really because they weren't threatening them with deep passes. That's the reason why.
If you took away that run game wasn't as strong as it normally is.
And if you take away those plays by Larry Fitzgerald, it's not
that passing game was still as tech.
That play, Larry Fitzgerald picked up like 60 or 70 some yards. But that you take 60, 70 some yards away from Carson Palmer's throwing totals. And it's still
200.
It is like
that's about
that rushing total would be under 100 yards.
That's about average though. The rushing total with Cam Newton rushing as well.
It'll be if you took that 60-yard play from Jonathan Stewart, it's under 100 yards. Yes, same thing.
And that's my point. So how are you going to discredit one offense and then you give the credit to another offense?
As a team, you have Cam Newton rushing as well. Of course, your rushing total is going to be a lot higher. That's why.
I think they're more versatile offense.
I know, but listen, that's why the Seahawks every year was leading the league in rushing every year, because Russell Wilson make plays with his feet, Marshawn Lynch was making plays with his feet. Now, you only have one person throwing the football at Arizona, so you take a 60-yard pass away. Yes, it's not going to look as impressive as running under 100 yards. But you have 2 people who running the ball, and you still under 100 yards, other than Big Harry, then it looks different. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, but that
I think
think of it this way. Let me see, what's the team that? Okay, let's go to Philadelphia. So if Sam Bradford's not a scrambling quarterback, we can say that he's not a scrambling quarterback. You're not worried about him getting more than 20 yards a game on his feet.
No.
So they're probably, I'll say as a team, they average 150 yards rushing, something like that, as a team. So if you take a 60-yard run from there, and Sam Bradford doesn't give you yards running, that rushing total looks pitiful.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say. Now, see, when you pass the ball, I mean, there's only one person passing the ball. You take, like you said, you take it away, but it's average. But I'm saying Carolina's Panthers rushing totals are a little boosted because you have Cam Newton running as well.
That's true.
So when you take that 60-yard run and you're still under 100 yards, and you're like, well, Was a rushing game really going? Even though you have Cam Newton running as well, like was it really going? That's what I'm trying to say.
That's where you're coming from.
I get what you're coming from, but this because that would take, you can't take away a big run from a team's offense because that means whatever
they have a run game.
Whatever cause that
because that means we can do that for every team that has a great running game, and then their running back breaks one big run because we know that's a big testament to how Adrian Peterson and Le'Veon Bell score. And you have your offense creates those holes. Your offense, your blockers have to go and block for those holes to be there. I mean, sometimes it's defensive last, sometimes the defense splits and y'all pick up the blitz. Those are plays that happen like that. So that's part of the game, and then you get burnt for a big play. That's what happens because nobody at the second level to tackle the running back. So if that happened on that specific play, you can't take that away from the Carolina's offense. They created a play. The play was given. You know what I mean? You can't say that their offense wasn't as good or whatever just because. I mean, they were top 6, top 5 in rushing throughout the season. So it was nothing new. I mean, Jonathan Stewart wasn't always available to him. So the fact they still remain top 5, top 6. I mean, that's a testament. They just run the ball great as it is. And Cam Newton, it wasn't like Cam Newton didn't throw any touchdowns in this game neither. You know what I mean? That one defensive touchdown essentially is the touchdown to put them over and above. But I mean, that still factors in.
That props to their whole offense. They got a versatile QB like that. They can actually run and add a whole lot more yards to the running game as well.
So how would you say that you see this game going with if you have because the reason I've been stucky with this game is because it's like it's the same. It was the same kind of thing that everybody kind of felt that it's that same kind of disrespect. I'm not saying disrespect, but the same kind of talent thing that people are measuring. They're like, man, you look at it on the table. The Seahawks got the Legion of Boom. You got Russell Wilson. You got Beast Mode. You got Doug Baldwin. You know, you got Jermaine Kearse. You got these guys, and you're like, man, they should be able to win this game. The game gets played, and you're like, man, this is not what I predicted. So then you look at it, and then now you look at the Cardinals. And now, granted, the Cardinals offense hasn't been the
most productive,
the prolific offense that we thought it essentially was at the beginning of the season. I mean, Carson Palmer hasn't played it all too well as of late. You know what I mean? I think he threw like how many interceptions last game? I think he threw 2. So you throw 2 interceptions in a game, and the Larry Fitzgerald play was a big play that it happened in overtime. So technically in regulation, their offense hadn't been all too great. It was solid, essentially, because they weren't running the ball all too well with David Johnson, who everybody's been gloating about him. So everybody's been gloating about that running back because he's been great. But they will have Chris Johnson said he's healthy to play this weekend. But David Johnson has still played solid for them throughout the time Chris Johnson's been hurt. And you're going up against a Packers defense that not everybody's pretty much rumored that or has pretty much consensus has agreed that Packers defense isn't great. So then you're going to go to Carolina. You're playing a way better defense. The only skeptical thing you have with the Panthers is the back of their secondaries. It's the safeties. But Josh Norman's legit. Cortland Finnegan's legit. So it's like, I mean, Luke Kuechly in the front 7 is legit. They get to the quarterback. Carson Palmer can't move. I mean, the dude's had so many knee surgeries. You think that leg is stationary. So it's like, you look at that, but then on the reverse side, you think about, man, the Cardinals got Patrick Peterson. They don't have Tyrann Mathieu no more, but you still look at it and you're like, man, their defense has been legit. And then you're like, man, all the Panthers have is Cam, Jonathan, Greg, and Ted Ginn Jr. But that's gotten them 15-1. So it's like, how we can't discredit that.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm not trying to discredit the team. But it kind of goes back to show you, like, before the game happened, we was talking about the Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals. When I told you I feel like Arizona's defensive line is better than.
My respect. The Panthers are actually number two in rushing.
Behind
Buffalo.
Behind Buffalo. Yeah. So it was Tyrod Taylor and Sean McCoy this year, holding it down. But. Like, I'm not trying to discredit the team because the team has been above everybody's expectations this year, especially with the injury they dealt with. We didn't see this team being, in the NFC Championship game. At least I didn't until I started watching them play, and I was like, oh snap! Yeah, this team can actually play. The defense is looking great.
Losing,
but then at the same time, I was watching like the Arizona Cardinals. Like, this should have been the team last year if Carson Palmer didn't get hurt.
So you think they would have beat the Seahawks?
Yes, I still stick to thinking that team was the best. I feel like for the past 2 seasons, the Arizona Cardinals have been the best team in the NFL when healthy.
Even seeing at their little drop off at the end of this season.
But that goes with healthy
because
thinking, Carson Palmer was a little unhealthy
at the end of the season.
At the end of this, yeah.
But the Panthers have been unhealthy. And they're number one. They were number one in points scored on offense.
But I mean, they're unhealthy as Kelvin Benjamin. Yeah, I'm not saying you can't. I mean, Benjamin.
Carson Palmer still played.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he missed a game with
he's still
index finger on his throwing hand.
He's still been playing though.
He has been playing.
So I mean,
Kelvin Benjamin came. We came in the season.
On those games that the drop offs occurred, Carson Palmer has been suited in uniform. Nobody's suited up for him.
You're right.
In those games that their drop off has shown.
Playing.
You know what I'm saying? So he was playing,
and
so those games where the points or the scoring wasn't as the offense was
his productivity went down. Yes, his productivity. That's when he had his injury on his throwing hand.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, Big Ben had an injury on his shoulder. Big Ben. And he didn't have Antonio Brown last week against the Denver Broncos.
This is Big Ben. We're talking. Big Ben is a different breed.
We've
already established how great. We've already established how.
If y'all need to see what I said about Big Ben last week, for anybody who bet against the Steelers or bet against the Steelers or anything, go watch the video I said last week on the KBR Sports YouTube channel. What I said about Big Ben. Go on. Go on.
Big Ben's a different breed.
But he's still a quarterback. I'm just saying.
Big Ben isn't your typical fragile quarterback. Carson Palmer's, your Tony Romo's, your I want to say Tom Brady, but Tom Brady he's a warrior. But he's not the Tom Brady. They're not gonna play him. They're not gonna be like Tom Brady. You got a messed up shoulder. You need to sit out because we need you. Big Ben, they're like torn shoulder. Do some push-ups on it. And go. That's how it is with them. See, so this finger injury is a lot more significant to someone like a Carson Palmer than it would be to like Big Ben.
This man's shoulder was hurt.
I understand. Look, I understand.
I can't just say it because it's big. So he had a hurt AC sprain in his shoulder. He had a torn ligament.
But the Arizona Cardinals haven't been losing.
They haven't been losing,
but they just haven't been as productive.
You ever heard that issues get covered up in wins?
I mean,
they covered up their issues through winning,
but it wasn't. But I mean,
then they just got blown out by the Seahawks at the end of the season.
They did. But see, we say for an average team, well, they're above average, obviously, because they're in the championship. But for an average team, their decline was what they do. You see what I'm saying? Because there's such a high expectations, and we saw how they can be at the beginning of the season and throughout the first half of the season. We saw how great that offense could be. That's what we expect. So that drop off, we're like, they dropped off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard to, I can't really say it's hard to, be the best offense all season long because you have games where you have drop offs, and that's where that's when people see you like, well, you didn't throw 400 yards, you do 275. You're scrubbing. You're scrubbing. You see what I'm saying? Like,
well, I don't think people see it as that, but I think people see it as when other teams are driving up and down the field on you, and then because think about it. When we talk about the Patriots drop off, we had told them most of the Patriots drop off to Julian Edelman being hurt, Damian Amendola being hurt. What was the starter running back? Dion Lewis being hurt. You know what I mean? Like we attributed to the guys like Gerard Mayo just got placed on IR the other day, so he's not going to be available for them this Sunday. So you look at all those kind of things. You attribute that kind of stuff to to the Patriots drop off, and then people still are like the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots weren't the number one scoring offense, but you still look at it and they're like, man, the Patriots are still pretty good. You know what I mean? As long as 12 and 81 are good. You know what I mean? Or 87. As long as 12 and 87 are good, the Patriots relatively are going to be in the game. But the Cardinals, I mean, Chris Johnson has been a serviceable back, but you could replace Chris Johnson. David Johnson did that. David Johnson came in and was producing for them.
That's the same thing.
And then they struggled to run the ball against the Packers. And so you look at
against a weak Packers defense.
But see, you can't say the whole defense is weak. I mean, the defense may give up a lot of passing yards, but their rushing defense is a lot better than their passing defense for the Packers.
That's true.
So I mean, you can't. I mean, yeah, the defense is weak. The defense is not as it used to be, but it's still the Green Bay Packers, and it's still a playoff game. It's not like it's kind of like how like the NBA, like teams are different when it comes to playoff time.
I mean, Green Bay's not even ranked in the top 17 for defense against rushing yards or defensive rushing yards. So I mean, their defense throughout the whole season hasn't been good at stopping the run,
right.
and then you couldn't run the ball against them.
But I
And
mean,
you had and David Johnson had 15 carries.
So
and he averaged 2.3 yards a carry.
So we consider.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying because sometimes you just have bad days.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I mean, the fact of the matter is still like when people did not expect Adrian Peterson to go off against the Seattle Seahawks because Seattle stops Adrian Peterson. They make that their goal. They're like, if there's anything we're gonna do, we're gonna let Teddy Bridgewater beat us. But that's an entirely different scenario when you have Teddy Bridgewater as your quarterback, you have Carson Palmer as your quarterback. Yeah. It's two different scenarios. So when you can't run the ball against a team that has to respect the fact that you can throw the ball, and they still don't even guard their secondary is not that legit. The number one person you can probably name from the Packers secondary is Sam Shields. Other than that, their secondary is not that legit. And then, you can't really run the ball on them. Carson Palmer is turning the ball over against them. So it's like.
But I mean, you can say that same thing with the Panthers, who's number 2 in rushing. We haven't seen them be prolific every game. So.
Well, I mean.
They
had Jonathan Stewart had over 100-some yards rushing.
No, I'm saying every game.
I'm
saying you haven't seen them be as number 2 rushing team every game. You can't go we haven't seen them go out every game and be like, that's why they're number 2 in rushing. Because this stuff right here. Every game is not like that. You have bad games as a team.
But most of the time, look at the team that they're not like that against. Look at what that team.
You're still the number 2 team in rushing.
I'm saying you're doing it most times. At least 14 games out of the 16 games. So but I'm saying look at those 2 games where they didn't rush the ball over 100 or whatever yards. Look at those 2 games where they didn't do that against, and see who was available to them. See if Jonathan Stewart played. See who's available to them. See who they played against and what their defense does against the run. Those factors play into this team is not going to stop in a run, and the Cardinals couldn't run the ball. And you're supposed to be the best all-around team of football in the NFC. You're the team that everybody was like you said, they could have went to the Super Bowl last season if Carson Palmer would stay healthy the past 2 seasons. And I mean, granted, they're at the NFC Championship now, which is a testament to their greatness in itself. But Carson Palmer did just legit win his first playoff game. Like this was his past.
But he would have won it last year if he was healthy.
So we don't know that. There's no reason to believe. There's no reason to believe that that definitely would have happened. He's given us no reason to believe. All those Cincinnati Bengals teams he was on were talented. They were all talented. They didn't have the defensive secondary that the Cardinals have, but they were all good enough for you to win one playoff game. And he just won one this past weekend.
Hey, I just want to say one more thing about this.
What?
I understand everything both of y'all are saying. I completely do. I get how you're saying. They had a drop off.
Did I say something blasphemous?
No. I completely understand how you said Arizona had a drop off. But just remember, Darren McFadden had 100 yards against Carolina. That's all I gotta say.
And the Cowboys are a good rushing team.
Hey,
so what's your point?
That's all I gotta say. They had 100 yards against Carolina.
Darren McFadden.
Wait for Arizona to play. Wait, they can give us some yards.
Right, that's Darren McFadden.
They can give us some yards. Right? Hey, no. Early in the season, you talk about this Darren McFadden.
Dallas is the 9th rushing team in the league. Y'all have the best O-line in the league.
Exactly. But listen.
What is your point?
If this team can run,
top 10 team that can run.
Whoa. Good thing, but we had no quarterback. I mean,
they're still running.
Our job,
exactly.
just like the Seahawks said, your main job is stop Adrian Peterson. Let Teddy. Same thing with us. Let Brandon Whedon beat you because we're Brandon Whedon at the time. Let Brandon Whedon beat you. Matt Castle didn't play that game. it was Brandon Whedon right there against them. Because that's how I was like, we're good. We're still gonna be good.
No. Tony Romo played. Tony Romo started the game.
Was it really?
Yeah, Tony Romo played.
That game he got hurt at?
Yeah.
Wait, second time?
I didn't remember. It was Tony Romo on Thanksgiving when they played. Tony Romo got.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's right. Hey, but still,
his wife was sick.
Hey, but still, you gotta think about it like this.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. That's injury's not funny, but it's just the fact that the whole thing just started replaying in my mind. I was like, wait, was it Matt Castle? And then all started replaying in my head.
All right, so when you watch that game, we clearly saw how Tony Romo was playing. We clearly saw how Tony Romo was playing.
I mean, but I'm just. But still, that's
Tony Romo threw picks.
That's Tony Romo.
That's
Tony Romo.
Wait,
I'm saying you can't just tell me.
They're gonna focus on Tony Romo.
I want to make a case because that's how bad it was. That's why I was like, damn, Romo didn't even play. That's how bad of a performance it was.
Romo was so bad that they had to focus on the rush.
No, Romo was so bad I didn't even know he played.
But here's the thing.
That's how bad it was. Romo was so bad I didn't know he played.
His whole case was about to be about how they stopped the
Hey,
His whole game got to be about how they focus on the run because it was Matt Castle or Brandon Reed back there.
Hey.
But the fact now that Tony Romo, my man, is stuck.
Hey,
It was Tony Romo.
point is, Tony Romo. You look at Tony Romo. All right, I can still fix this case. I can still fix this case. You look at Tony Romo. You look at Tony Romo like you look at Carson Palmer. You give them the same kind of like treatment. Like, okay, they both can sling the ball across the field. They both have good threats. You have a Des Bryant. You have a Larry Fitzgerald. So when you look at that team gave up 100 yards rushing to this team with a hurt Tony Romo, who they still was like, okay, he can still do this. So then they can be like, okay, we still got to worry about Carson Palmer. So 100 yards rushing is going to come. And when let me finish.
Okay,
let me finish. And when that 100 yard rushing comes, they're gonna be like, we need to adjust to this run. And when they adjust to this run, that's when Carson Palmer like, I got him. And that's when they're gonna torture him. So that's what's gonna happen. Arizona is gonna beat this game, win this game easily. And I don't know if y'all saw the little video where Cam Newton was like, man, I can't keep my cool. I don't know if y'all saw that video. Yeah. He's gonna be like that again. I definitely can't keep my cool this time.
Oh my God. You said they go focus on the run while they got Carson Palmer.
Hey, because when the run gets 100 yards rush, when they run all over them, like the Cowboys did, they're gonna be like, all right, we need to adjust. But see, when they adjust to us, there was no Tony Romo no more because he was.
Here's the thing you gotta love about Rashad. Rashad will always have something that always give you a point of view that nobody looks from. But here's the thing: Rashad leaves out little anecdotes that you just gotta include. You gotta make sure you fill in. You know what I'm saying? Like these are little important little quotes and facts that you gotta make sure you include. Fact number one: the Cowboys had the best offensive line in the NFL. So of course, running and protecting Tony Romo is a lot easier for them to do than it is for the Cardinals to do with Carson Palmer and David Johnson or Chris Johnson. Point number two: Des Bryant is better than any receiver on the Arizona Cardinals. Am I wrong?
That is a fact.
Am I wrong? No. That's point number two. Point number three: Tony Romo has statistically been better than Carson Palmer in every season of his career. So
that is true.
Knowing this, you have a better quarterback and a better offensive line with a better receiver and another tight end who's a better second option than their tight end. I'm just going to call John Brown and all those Michael Floyd and all them also, but who also has a solid receiving core. You count all those things, and yet the Panthers focused on the running game.
When Tony Romo was like this,
I don't understand.
Tony Romo went out in the third quarter.
Second half.
Come on.
No, that's unacceptable.
It wasn't the whole second half.
Second half is the third quarter.
So what happened for the first 2.5 quarters? What happened those first 2.5 quarters? Oh, okay. Okay. With the best offensive line. So now imagine what the team that doesn't have the best offensive line in the game. What's Carson Palmer going to do? And he's not even as mobile as Tony Romo.
Yeah.
He's not even as mobile as Tony Romo is.
The thing. Tony Romo was getting the ball out way too early. He still had time for protection. He still had time. Well, obviously he did in the second half because he got hit and then he was this. But he had time before he was throwing the ball. He was just panicking too early because he thought, I just want to make sure I don't get hit. Oh, that's all he was. I don't want to get hit.
I mean,
Carson Palmer get hit. Pocket like this. He's gonna get a finger like this. He got time. And
guys,
Carson Palmer got time.
We can talk about this for forever. Rashad will come up with 10,000 angles.
You a number now.
With Tony Romo has a
give me our scores.
21 now.
What's yours?
You
said 34.
21
Cardinals. 34-21. I'd say 31-20.
Who?
Panthers. My bad.
Panthers.
Yeah.
Shame. No people picking the Panthers.
I say
Panthers.
Because the
Panthers
27. It feels like one of those seasons that you legit. On one side, you have the AFC, who Tom Brady, nobody's stopping Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, you got the NFC, who nobody can stop Cam. So then it legit feels like it's just destined for the two to be like this, and one is going to stop the other. So I'm going to pick the Panthers to win 28-20. Oh, shut up, man. It's the same. It's in the next topic. We're going to go on to the next topic. No, we have to go. We have to go. No. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God, no.
Whoever wins this NFC Championship game will win the Super Bowl.
You think the NFC champion?
The NFC Championship decides the Super Bowl.